Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez back again. I hope you enjoyed the last video where I try to tell you what you might be getting into when you consider home printing. I had an individual tell me everything that he is doing, and obviously he knows what he's doing. So that video may not have been made for him per se, but for those who are just teetering on the fence whether or not to send your work to a lab or to accept the commitment you have to give in order to have that luxury of being able to see your work instantly and make instant adjustments. Now that you have made that jump and now you're printing at home, what is it that you have to constantly keep track of? You have to make sure that your nozzle checks are always perfect, because that will determine something, an artifact that may crop up. And this has nothing to do with color casts that people may have been reporting lately. This has a lot to do with another type of artifact. So here's a Pro 1000 nozzle check, Pro 100 nozzle check, and they are perfect, certified by me. Okay, so now I know that my printers are working correctly. They are firing on all cylinders. I know what my settings are supposed to be. Again, if you want to learn about that, check out my color management playlist. Everything is there, folks. I don't need to repeat myself every 6 months. Go there and study. I have examples for printing on Canon printers, on EPSON printers, so there should be no question after you get done examining some of those videos. Now, something that can happen to your prints will look a little odd, and the technical term for it is banding. And what that means is that it looks stripy. It looks like the image is made up of stripes, sometimes relatively well pronounced and sometimes kind of hard to detect, but you can see it. So how does that happen? Well, there are several types of banding and several ways that this artifact can manifest itself. Now, to eliminate that it is caused by missing nozzles, you need to make sure that your nozzle checks are perfect. And if they are not, cleaning cycles, folks. That's what it takes. And why did it get to that point? You did not print enough. Simple as that. So once you establish that any banding that you might see is not due to missing nozzles, then you can at least eliminate that cost. Now, how to find out if your printer is going to produce any banding whatsoever on its own? Well, remember my favorite image? Besides the obvious, there is a section right here that will help you determine if your printer may or may not produce banding along the way. Depends where. It depends where. So what it includes is red, blue, and green, from full saturation all the way to pure black, from full saturation all the way to pure white. And the same thing with yellow, cyan, and magenta, from full saturation transitioning all the way to white, and of course full saturation all the way to black. So you want to look along that transitional line, if you will, as the tones changes gradually, and you want to look to see if you see any banding at all. I don't know whether you can tell on camera, but this is pretty clean. And of course, what is this? The Pro 1000. So at least I know the Pro 1000 with its current ink sets and that perfect image, the evaluation image that I make available to you on my Facebook group, will print pretty much perfectly. Okay, no banding whatsoever. Now, what could cause banding? Well, it could be an image that is too low a bit rate, and it cannot display gradual changes in tonalities. Okay, and that will manifest itself on certain images and not be visible at all in others. Let's examine what type of images may show you this type of banding. I have a beautiful sunset here, and if I was to just take off my glasses so I can see better, I'm looking at the sky and I see some very gradual tonal changes. If that original standard image showed any kind of banding along that section, the graduated tone section, I would likely see it here, because this image is not the same quality as that evaluation image. That is maximum quality for this particular test, okay? If it's going to show, it will be visible clearly on this particular image, but it is not, okay? So I see no banding whatsoever. So banding can occur on an image that you basically saved, say, as a JPEG from a RAW file, which you should never do anyway. And maybe you compressed it too much, and so now you cannot separate every single tone in the millions. You can only separate it in maybe 200 tones. So you may have a little line of demarcation, for instance, between one tone and another, and it will show up as a band, but it won't be a straight horizontal band or vertical band. It'll just be kind of a posterized type band. And you can see that very clearly only on areas that have no detail. The same thing would occur here. Now, I could see every brick here, but that sky, that water, it could possibly show banding, because it's simply so gradual that if you have a tonal change from here to here, and you don't have sufficient bit rate to allow a continuous gradation, if you will, it will show off as a band. It'll go from one tone to a slightly different tone, and you will see that line where the difference takes place. That is a rare occurrence, okay? So good news for you. That hardly ever happens. If you work with RAW files, work with a utility that allows you to directly edit that virtual rendition of that RAW file, like Lightroom does, like Qimage does, and many of the other RAW type editors. Photoshop, on the other hand, allows you to open it in a RAW editor or RAW converter and then export it to Photoshop as a given type of file format, TIFF, PSD, or God forbid, JPEG. So that already will degrade the image slightly. TIFF, a tiny amount. PSD, a tiny amount. JPEG, a huge amount. So you want to work on a type of editor that allows you to just simply open up that RAW file, you perform all the changes, and everything is saved as a sort of metadata type instructions. In other words, it's not really affecting the original file. And when you print it, it should be unaffected. It should be unaltered. It should be not degraded at all. Okay. Now, what about banding caused by mechanical reasons? Okay. And that's the most common form of banding that you will see. I wish I had examples, but I simply don't. Okay. Banding that is caused by mechanical reasons will be a regular banding across the travel of the printhead. Okay. And the reason that occurs is because you have a mismatch in the alignment of the amount of ink or the width of the passage of ink that the printhead deposits and the advance of the media or paper. Okay. If everything is not perfectly synchronized, you will either have a slight overlapping or a slight gap. And also depends on the quality setting that you choose. Okay. So at the lowest quality, the whole width of those printer nozzle plate will lay down some ink. So it may be 3/4 of an inch band of ink. And then the paper is supposed to advance 3/4 of an inch and lay another band, actually returning. That better be perfect. So the last row of dots will allow the next row to be right next to it without any gap or overlap. When you increase the quality, it's not going to advance, say, a 3/4 of an inch advance. It's going to go maybe half of that. And if you increase the quality even further, then 1/4 of that. So there will be some overlapping, and any kind of slight misalignment will be sort of hidden because you're laying dots over existing dots. So you may have, due to dithering, a sort of like covering up of the error that you will see definitely when you print, say, in draft mode or normal mode. Obviously, it's going to take longer to print at a higher quality because you're advancing the paper only a small amount as you make a single pass. Whereas on a lower quality, you're advancing the paper a lot more per pass. Now, so how do you solve this? Well, first of all, you better have a perfect nozzle check to begin with, because you have to perform a head alignment. Now, older printers, you had to do this by eye, and it was kind of difficult to do. But now they have, most printers allow you to do an auto head alignment or automatic head alignment. And the best paper to use for that is a glossy paper. Why would you want to use a more expensive paper rather than the cheap copy paper? Because the cheap copy paper will cause ink to wick and sort of blurs what the sensor is looking for, okay, to enable that adjustment so that it is perfectly aligned. You use a glossy paper, it has minimum ink wicking or ink spread or dot gain, as it is professionally known. And it will give you a more accurate alignment of the printhead, meaning that the advance of the paper matches exactly the width of the amount of ink being laid at any one time. So you run your head alignment and then you run it again, okay? That will double the accuracy of your results. And every 3 or 4 months, remember, you have to run this head alignment again. Printers are mechanical things. They go out of alignment, okay? Back and forth constantly. They will lose that level of alignment. You have to perform it every 3 to 4 months, around there. And if you see any problems, you will likely see them. This is kind of strange. This might come across as a little bit strange, but for whatever the reason, and I don't know what the reason is, you will see it along blues, skies, waters. Don't ask me why, but most of the reports that I see from folks have to do, oh, my sky has a bit of banding on it and it doesn't show up anywhere else, okay? So remember, banding due to nozzles that are blocked will only show up. It'll be kind of regular, but kind of an odd type pattern, but they will only show up on areas that are affected by that particular color, okay? If other areas do not use that color whatsoever, they will not be affected. You will not see the banding. So it'll be sort of localized. Mechanical banding, on the other hand, will show up as repetitive, regular, stripy type look across the head travel, depending on the orientation of your print. Whereas banding due to low bitrate on your image or over compression, and I'll tell you one last little thing. When you over sharpen your image, if you had an area that was already high compression and maybe a lower bitrate, and you barely see it when you over sharpen your image, now you will see it, okay? That's when you will see it. So again, be careful, know how to recognize the type of banding, and know what to do, okay? So banding due to clogged nozzles, cleaning cycle followed by nozzle check, and then check that nozzle check to ensure that it is 100%. Banding in skies where you see kind of an irregular curve to the edge, that is too high a compression or low bit rate. And repetitive banding that has an overlapping effect or a gap where you see a dark, slightly thin band between two passes or a slightly lighter section between two passes. Those are always due to head alignments, okay? There's no synchronization between your head amount of ink, the width, and the paper advance. And the only way to fix that is to make sure you have 100% nozzle check and then do it auto head alignment. And that will get you going. Again, like I said, I don't even know what that is on all my printers. So make sure that you, with just 1 or 2 printers, take care of that problem if you do have it crop up on your prints. All right, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, don't forget to subscribe, click that bell, click the notification notice, and tell it to let you know when I upload something new. We have 30,000 subscribers, and we only get a couple hundred views on a new video. I don't get it. Okay, that's a really bad ratio. So anyway, please help me out in that regard. That way you can always catch on to the latest videos that I upload here. All right, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.